Isn't it strange how we know exactly what we should be doing? We've got the books, we've seen all the routines, we know what works. So, how come it doesn't stick? I myself used to spend countless hours watching productivity videos on YouTube and reading personal development books, but I could not stay consistent. What's funny is that I've spent over a decade being a professional systems developer. Building scalable and modular software was literally my job. And yet, somehow it never crossed my mind that I could apply the same systems thinking to my life. When I finally started treating my energy, my habits, and my goals like systems to be designed, tested, and refined, that's when everything changed. Picture it like having all the books and all the courses on personal development condensed into a single system that's actually designed to work in real life. I call this system the Fundamental Mastery System. It's built entirely inside of Notion, and there are 7 core design principles that went into it that I would like to share. Each principle focuses on a different aspect of life: how you manage your energy, how you track performance, how you create, build, and execute habits, how you make decisions, and importantly, how you connect the day-to-day execution to the higher level vision. So if you feel like you already know all the right things, and yet there just isn't something holding them together, I think you're going to enjoy this. So let's jump right into principle number 1, which is master the fundamentals. And this is where it all begins, not with the productivity tools or time blocking, but with the actual core foundation that your life depends on. Most people think of work as the input. The more you put in, the more you get out. While that's partially true, for practical purposes, work is actually the output. Good work is what comes out when your energy, clarity, and systems are all aligned. That's why so many people can do all the right things but still crash. That's because they're optimizing the top of the system on a shaky foundation. The way I think about it is as a layered system, like a pyramid. At the very base, you have things like your environment, sleep, movement, and nutrition. Above that comes clarity. Clarity is like a bridge from your energy to execution. Clarity is so critical and so misunderstood that we'll come back to it in principle number 5. Only at the very top do you see layers of work and love. If any of the bottom layers break, everything else collapses. There is no point trying to scale if you're sleep deprived. Most execution problems start way before execution. I used to track my deep work hours religiously, but when I would hit a wall, I'd have no idea why that happened. I was tracking the output, but I wasn't tracking what made that output possible. So in the fundamental mastery system, we first get very clear on which life domains we need to optimize first. Then we take those domains and we map them to a specific set of routines that will actually be advancing and maintaining those domains. As James Clear said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So this is going to be your safety net. So when something breaks, you can ask, which layer failed? Not why am I not performing, but where am I under-resourced? The thing is, mastering the fundamentals isn't really flashy. There is this story about a legendary UCLA's basketball coach, John Wooden, that I really love. At the start of every season, his first session wouldn't be about drills or strategy. It would be literally about putting on your socks. He would teach grown men how to put on their socks. But he would reason, if you are not careful about that, you're going to get blisters and then your entire game is off. So that's what the first principle is about. It's the boring stuff done with precision and done consistently. The difference with this system is that we aren't just going to talk about the fundamentals. We're going to define the core domains. We then map them to a specific set of routines. We track them, automate them, and we build them right into the architecture of our lives. Moving on, principle number 2 is score your performance. So once you've defined your core domains and the respective routines, the next question is, are you actually doing what you said you will do? We need to build an effective feedback loop. Most people have tried tracking their habits, but what they're missing is structure. Just having checkboxes is not enough. In reality, most habit trackers are either too rigid, too shallow, or just wildly disconnected from your real goals. Moreover, the scoring system is usually either weak or non-existent. Here's how it works in the fundamental mastery system. Once you've created your routines by domain, you will assign a specific number of points to each one of them. Then you map them to specific time cycles. Routines can be daily, weekly, monthly, etc. The system will score your performance by domain and will also ask you to set a target for each domain. Don't set these targets based on perfection, just make sure you show up. Once your individual domains are scored, those scores will be combined into an overall mastery score for that specific date. Those will aggregate into weeks, months, and even years. That will give you a consistent feedback loop across your entire life. That system completely reframed how I think about performance. If done correctly, you will see a very clear connection between those scores and how you actually feel and perform. So now instead of ending the week wondering if it was a good week, you're just going to look at the data and see where I shown up, this is where you slipped, and what needs work. You're going to have a feedback loop that you actually trust. Principle number 3 is engineering the habit loop. Most people try to brute force their way to consistency. They believe if they repeat something long enough, eventually it's just going to stick. In reality, repetition doesn't make habits. Good design does. We've all heard this advice that, do something for 21 days or 66 days or whatever number of days, and you're going to make it a habit. That's complete load of crap. Total nonsense. If that was true, we'd all have flawless routines by now. The truth is, routines fail because they weren't engineered for frictionless execution. They're hard to start, it's unclear what needs to be done, and at the end, you don't see any reward. Every routine in the system is designed with the cue, routine, reward, habit loop architecture. Cue is a simple and reliable trigger that shows you that it's time to act. Routine is a clear, well-defined execution checklist with no ambiguity and no guesswork. And reward is a built-in sense of completion and satisfaction. One key factor in the success of this system is the co-location of execution of routine and its documentation. It should be a life protocol that you can improve every time you run it. It's not about building a robotic life, and you are not going to be automating like everything, but it's about automating the right things so you can free up your mind in other areas of life. So I suggest you switch from seeing discipline problems to seeing friction problems. So when a habit breaks, you can ask not why am I inconsistent, but where is the friction in this loop? There's a lot of cool technical implementation when it comes to this principle, so I'll walk you through the entire process in the full video. Principle number 4 is aggregate the insights. While tracking routines and keeping score is great, there has to be a systematic way of reviewing all that stuff. If you're already tracking some data, there's a good chance you don't need more of it. You need better roll-ups and better visualization of it. Oftentimes, people track their days and maybe they journal, but when it comes to reviewing, they have to scroll through dozens of disconnected entries just to figure out what actually happened. Without clear structured aggregation, your system doesn't scale. It simply creates overwhelm. In the fundamental mastery system, every time cycle, a day, a week, or even a year, has a succinct way of visualizing all the most critical information. And on top of that, every time cycle has a built-in review layer. You don't just reflect, you roll up all the scores, all the events, and the lessons from the layer below. Now that we've talked about the importance of aggregating and reviewing your data, that brings us very well to the next principle, which is prioritize clarity routines. Because once your basic routines are running, the real leverage isn't in optimizing those even further. Once our body and environment are stable, it's very easy to obsess over small improvements, like trying a new supplement or maybe another 1% productivity hack. But none of that matters if you are unclear on what actually matters. Most of the time, clarity is that missing link between energy and execution. In this system, clarity is not something you wait for, it's something you engineer. Just like in any other domain, you build it up from a specific set of routines executed consistently. The way you do that is through a structured rhythm I call the clarity cycle. It has 6 stages, and since it's a cycle, you can think of it as starting at any stage that you'd like. Now, you doing stuff is execution stage, and is just one of the 6 stages. There's tracking, which is of course super important, and there is a lot more tracking in the system than just tracking of habits that we talked about. Then there's reset, where you make sure all your environment and systems are reset to a position where you're ready to execute on the next cycle. The review stage is, of course, where you look over the data that you've collected over the previous cycle and reflect on it. The reconnect stage you can think of as a pre-planning phase. So if, for example, you're planning the next day, the first thing to do is actually reconnect with your goals for the week. Then planning the next day becomes much easier. And planning is, of course, the stage where you take the clarity you've achieved through the reset, review, and reconnect stages, and you turn it into an intentional set of decisions for the next cycle. And then the cycle repeats. Here's the key insight: only the execution stage happens on a daily cycle. All the other 5 stages, they happen on all the time frames: days, weeks, months, quarters, years, and even life chapters and seasons of life. That's what makes this system resilient. Clarity does not come from some singular breakthrough. It comes from repeating this cycle over and over again. Principle number 6 is ensure flexibility by design. When it comes to mastery, consistency is the most important thing. And consistency doesn't really come from discipline. And it definitely does not come from rigidity. It comes from designing for real life. Most systems fail because they assume perfect conditions, but true high performance systems should be both structured and flexible. The fundamental mastery system ensures flexibility on 3 different levels. First is day type flexibility. You don't have just one type of day in your life, and your system shouldn't assume that you do. We define different kind of templates for different types of days: an execution day, a recovery day, complete rest day. Then you match the right design for the right type of day. Because discipline isn't doing the same thing every day, it's doing the right thing for the day that you're in. Then there is routine level flexibility. For each routine, you can have multiple versions, like a low, medium, and high, for example. On a good day, you can run the full version, and on a tough day, you can at least check the minimal version and show up. That's how you stay consistent without burning out. The third layer is system evolution flexibility. Your routines will change and your priorities will shift. With the right system, it should be very easy to spot those necessary changes and also very easy to implement them. The execution and the documentation live in the same place, so when something breaks, you catch it quickly and update it right away. Trust me, I've rebuilt my daily and weekly routines hundreds of times. So what I've learned is that if a system takes more time and energy to manage than it saves you, it's completely broken. The more flexible I made it, the more consistent I became. So this leads us to the last principle of the fundamental mastery system: anchor execution to vision. This is where everything comes together. Your energy, your clarity, your routines, all the tracking that you do, everything anchors to something much bigger. Most productivity systems are glorified to-do lists, and they live in the day-to-day. Without the long-term alignment, they become just another version of busy work. But real transformation comes from being able to zoom out and stay aligned over a long period of time. Too often, you forget why you're doing what you're doing, and then the whole system feels hollow. This system isn't built just for the days and the weeks. It's built to operate across every time frame, from daily checklist to your life's vision. There are 3 major time frames that this system adds beyond the year. That's life's chapters, seasons, and lifetime. And those 3 are designed to make sure you're very clear on your values, identity, and vision. Every time frame has the routines of the clarity cycle, and each cycle carries a specific focus. This keeps your planning aligned, your execution very intentional, and your goals contextualized. Every single task that you're doing contributes to some higher level vision. This is where the clarity cycle really shines. Every single time frame gives you an opportunity to reconnect your execution to your vision. And this is how you stay aligned, not once a year, but every single cycle. So keep in mind that the execution isn't the final goal. Anchoring execution to vision is truly the last puzzle piece that turns this system into the ultimate tool for creating the life you actually want to live. So this is the big picture. These are the 7 principles behind the fundamental mastery system. I think these 7 principles should be applied to any life operating system. So if you're currently using such a system, you can assess how it checks the boxes. Or if you're building one from scratch by yourself, then hopefully that gives you some direction. This was just a very brief overview, and in the videos that will follow, I will actually walk you through each principle one by one, showing examples and system walkthroughs and visuals, and even digging into the formulas. I'll show you how to break down your life into specific domains, how to set up the scoring system, and how to engineer habits that actually stick. I'm planning to not hold anything back and also include full built from scratch guides for all the areas of the system. So if this resonated with you, I'd be happy to see you in the next video. We're starting with principle number one, how to master the fundamentals. There we will operationalize the foundation that everything else is built on. I'll see you there.